What is the difference between cognitive function and executive function? You have two brains that you use every day, but do you actually understand what each of these brains are doing? Cognitive function versus executive function. They're both very important, but one helps you think and one helps you take action. You ever struggle with focus and decision making? I'm going to show you how to operate with these two brains so that you can make a decision and take action immediately. Once you unpack the secret of what your cognitive function does and your executive function, you will be unstoppable after watching this short video. Cognitive function is what allows us to pull in perceptions and information and details, and then the cognitive part of our brains allows us to process those. And so that's where when you have a flurry of ideas that come in, and then as these ideas start to percolate in your brain, you can start landing on these processes and thinking that helps you take this idea into the executive function of your brain, which is where we take action. So without the cognitive function, what you'll notice is that you'll miss gaps. You'll notice that your thinking isn't quite as clear as you want it to be, and then it limits your ability to take action. So decision making is actually one of the most important things we do in life, because the decision you're making right now to actually focus in and getting your brain healthy is critical, because if you can learn how to make better decisions, then you'll notice that your life just gets better and better every day. But without having the capability, having the executive function, this is where people with ADHD, ADD, all of these kind of modes of distraction, when our brains are pulled in so many different directions, we may have great cognitive function and we may be a genius cognitively, but those ideas are like somebody who has 700 patents and they are a mad scientist and an inventor, but those patents are all on the shelf. They're all just stored away in some filing system and never taken to the marketplace. So because you're a genius and you're somebody that I love and I care about, and I know you're somebody who's making a big impact in other people's lives, I'm going to show you how you can access this beautiful part of your brain called the executive function, so that these great ideas that you have, they can actually come to life in a shorter period of time. So one of my goals is to have this decision-making time that's compressed. So the faster you make a decision, the faster you take action. And then that creates this feedback loop. And that feedback loop is always overseen by your cognitive function. So are you living up to the goals of the project? Do you have the right integrity in mind? Are you future focused? Are you able to make the biggest impact through this lens? And so that's what we'll cover today. Your executive function is really important for creating strategy. So you need a strategy when it comes to your relationship. Maybe you're in a committed relationship or you want to be in one. You'll need a strategy when it comes to what school to go to if you're a student, or what business to launch if you're an entrepreneur, or what's the new technology, or even a strategy around AI. I mean, I love all of my AI agents. We've been working with them for 3 years, and now we have this beautiful strategy where we can use AI to interpret things faster. And so the AI works as an external force in my cognitive function because it can disseminate the information very quickly. And so the way that you can capture this executive function is strategy is simply defined as having an unlimited amount of options with a limited amount of resources, being time, money, whatever the resource may be. It may be team, it may be capabilities. And one of the things that my mentor, Dan Sullivan, taught me is that once you have the capability, then you can capture a bigger vision. But even if you have a bigger vision and you don't have executive function, it's going to be hard to take action. So if you can create the right strategy and you say, okay, what decision do I need to make based on where I want to go? The first thing you want to define is, okay, how am I getting to where I need to go? And let's use the example of, I want to lose 30 pounds. And so we say, okay, what's the appropriate time frame for losing 30 pounds? And this is where we'll look at your labs, analyze those in detail, and we'll say, okay, here are the reasons why you're not losing weight, and here's the things that you need to do. So the healthy way to lose 30 pounds and to keep it off for good is where you actually start losing 1 pound per week. And the way that you do this is simply having a 500 calorie deficit every single day of the week. You don't have to starve yourself. And this is where all the diets, if you look at, well, why does keto work? Well, you're taking out carbohydrates. Well, why does a carnivore diet work? Well, you're taking out all the vegetables and all the starches and all the other foods. Why does the vegetarian or the vegan diet work? Well, you're taking out the proteins and the meats. But really what it comes down to, if you're looking at strategy, is people are putting themselves in a caloric deficit. And there's healthy ways of doing this, but the strategy would be, let's figure out how we can put a food system together for you that gives you all the macronutrients you need, approximately 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and then let's food prep that. So, well, how many grams is that? Well, if you weigh 200 pounds and your ideal goal is to get down to 170 pounds, then you want to be getting at least 170 grams of protein in every single day. And so you'd say, well, how much is 170 grams? Well, 1 pound of meat is approximately 100 grams of protein. And we want you getting most of your protein from meat sources, for example. And so you just strategically buy a pound of meat, cook it, and put it in containers with 50 to 100 grams of protein. So you'd take 1 pound of meat, put it in a container, and try to eat that between breakfast and lunch and have that whole thing gone. And then for dinner, you want to make sure you've got about 70 grams of protein. And maybe you're getting proteins from eggs or yogurt or wherever you get it from. And then you just want to calculate that and build your whole food around the protein first. Eat your protein first, and then add in other foods. And what you'll notice is that you'll be in a caloric deficit because you're eating your protein first and it's more satiating. Your blood sugar's not going all over the place. And then you'll start making the strategic move to where you want to go in your health. So when it comes to executive function, the executive function is magical because the way that you can take action and the way you can use your cognitive function, well, first of all, think of your Kolbe profile. Go back and take that test if you haven't already and watch my video on your Myers-Briggs and the Kolbe profile, and you'll start to see that there's this connection that you can make where you can take action on any goal that you've got in life, whether it's your health. We can break it down and we can use your executive function. And then with the executive function, if you have the right team around you, you'll start noticing that it's not that hard. And so we call this accountability because a lot of you, people come to me all the time and they say, man, I wish I would have met you 3 years ago, Regan. It's like, well, I wish we would have met too, but you probably were trying to do it on your own. And that's where our executive function starts to falter if you don't have accountability people around you. So one of the most important things you can do is get an accountability partner. Work with a team that's going to help support you every step of the way so that you can activate that executive function, and then you continually work on that executive function through things like intranasal stem cells. You can boost your cognitive performance by using peptides like CMAX, RG3 synapsin. I've got a whole video on dihexa, cerebrolysin. There's so many powerful things that can keep that executive function in gear so that you can do your best work and be the best version of you with the least amount of effort and the highest level of leveraged activities just by working on this one little aspect of your brain. So now that you've learned about executive function, if you want to go deeper and actually understand how your brain works, because it's different than mine, different than anybody's, so that you can take action, then go to my video on the MBTI. You'll learn where you're at from a cognitive perspective, and then if you take the Kolbe test, you'll learn how you take action on things. I'll see you there.